Welcome to the Phantom Zone.
Hello and welcome to And Now Comics. I am Lou Gonzalez. Joining me this week is John Seiler.
If Gold Balls lays eggs, does that make him the goose that lays the golden eggs?
I guess.
His nickname should be Goose, or his code name should be Goose.
Gooseballs.
Gooseballs.
They call me Goose.
Also joining us is Connor Irving.
Hope Summers is a Mercy main. Yeah, that's it.
And Ryan Fretz.
Hello.
Oh, just thank you for being professional. At least one of us.
Yes, hello.
No catchphrase needed.
Yeah,
No catchphrase. I'll work on one.
Yeah, so we have our couple of news stories before we get into Hawks. Hawks number 5.
You gotta watch out
like
for all
that.
those hawks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They'll steal your kids.
All right, so John, why don't you kick us off with some of these stories?
So the first story actually came out a couple hours ago. There was rumors a couple months ago that Brian Azzarello was supposed to take over for Suicide Squad, and then that didn't happen. And then it was revealed about a month and a half ago that DC was planning a new Brian Azzarello Birds of Prey series that was going to be launching in October, November. And I think at the time it was announced, I don't know if we talked about it on the show, but the idea of a Brian Azzarello Birds of Prey book kind of does nothing for me. I think Brian Azzarello is fine, but I don't think he's the kind of person I want on a Birds of Prey book currently. But so it was announced today that DC has canceled all orders of Brian Azzarello's Birds of Prey book and will resolicit those issues as Black Label comics alongside the movie, which I think it makes more sense for them to launch a Birds of Prey book alongside the movie in February. But
yeah, that makes way more sense.
But I also don't know why the Birds of Prey book is a Black Label book, because Birds of Prey is not necessarily a property I think of.
I think that's because of Azzarello's connection to it at the time.
I would think that also.
It's also probably a way to kind of bump up that label a bit.
Get something that isn't Batman, but still kind of Batman.
Yeah, which I guess the reason to put in Black Label so that there's cursing, and I'm guessing they would probably have Harley be overtly sexual, because that's how she basically always is. No, I don't think they would show nudity, because I think because of the first issue of the Azzarello Batman Damn book.
Oh yeah, that's true.
I think you forget that the comic industry is run by men and also predominantly paid for by men, and men don't want to show their dicks flinging around, but are more than happy to show female nudity.
That's very true.
Yeah,
that's why I kind of brought it up.
I guess you're right. I think it would be it would have been more the Harley, how she is in some of her books with Ivy, kind of more sexualizing her, specifically that character compared to the other ones.
Oh, I can't wait to see that.
Which
well,
I mean, given given my work, or the job I work in, I would be a hypocrite to basically DC's not allowed to do shit like that, and I think they're allowed to. I think a lot of the Amanda Connor Harley Quinn stuff was done in a super kind of fun, cheesecakey kind of fun way. Same with the stuff with her and Power Girl, and the stuff with her and Ivy. I think it's always been very fun. But I think it's just it's what is the intent of the scene?
Yeah.
What goes on in it? What happens? I didn't think Bat Dick was all that big of a deal, and from what it seemed no one was really mad about it except for DC decided it was too much, I guess.
You can't show Batman's dick.
Yeah, I see. The thing is, I think with what happened, they got the press that they wanted, and then also got to backpedal, which is also what they wanted. They got to they had their cake and got to eat it too.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why, like, I don't think they'll ever touch the nudity thing again for like a good chunk of time. And if they do,
which is really unfortunate, kind of.
Yeah, like
it's like, who gives a shit? But like, that's also part of, to not go like too crazy. That's like part of like the puritanical American thing about violence is okay, but sex is like always taboo.
Yeah. God forbid.
All right. Well, so that book is king.
But yeah, I'll probably pick it up because it's a new Birds of Prey book. I tend to give a lot of the new Birds of Prey books a try, so hopefully it's good. But speaking on Black Label, DC announced that there'll be a new Dark Knight Returns book called Dark Knight. Go ahead.
No, I was just saying. So, well, I was just saying. So, this is the 4th book in the series.
Yes. And so this book is called Dark Knight Returns: The Golden Child, with art or with writing by Frank Miller, art by Raphael Grandpa, and inks by Jordi Belair. And so at first I'm just like kind of like reading this. I'm like, I don't know, man, new Dark Knight Returns book by Frank Miller. And I'm like, oh, like Carrie Kelly's like Batman in that book. That seems cool, but like I don't know if I want to read Frank Miller writing, you know, Carrie Kelly, and then I get to Raphael Grandpa with arts with inks by Jordi Belair, and I'm like, oh, so this book will look really great, and the colors will look great. So I'm
like the art that they've shown is great. Like Raphael, I'm trying to remember because he has the accent on his name, and it's like Grandpa or whatever because he's Spanish, I think.
Yeah.
It's so like the last one looked terrible. Has anybody besides me read Master Race?
No.
I tried and then I just stopped.
Okay,
like I still have it on my bookshelf.
So what ends up, I don't remember if it was in, was it Strikes Back where Superman and Wonder Woman have a kid? Is that when she's pregnant?
Yeah, it's the second one.
Okay, so then they have the kid in the third one, and she's like running around. And the third, well, no, they have their second kid, I believe, because they have like now they have a son, a daughter, an older daughter who's a teenager, and a son. And so I guess it's like John Kent, and that's who the Golden Child is going to be. Who is half, I guess they're both half Amazonian, half Kryptonian. But yeah, the art looks pretty good. I like the design for the bat costume for Carrie Kelly. And
yeah, it looks really nice.
And in Dark Knight Master Race, she is already Batman at some points of it, but she is in like his costume where she looks like a guy. Like she looks like she's wearing a thing to disguise herself to look like Bruce.
You know what her costume kind of looks like? It's like if Frank Miller saw the Barbara Gordon Batgirl Burnside costume and kind of made it his own.
I can see that because like the way the cape is like really short, but then she also has a trench coat, which I kind of like.
It's also the boots.
The boots and the gloves are very like the oversized boots and gloves.
Yeah, which like I'm like a sucker for characters who have oversized gauntlets or gloves. I just like really love that aesthetic.
Her cowl is very different too because it looks like a more motorcycle helmet, but then the ears look like fabric.
Mm-hmm.
Like it does look good. I don't know. I like the designs. I will read it but not buy it, just so that I can have read all of it. But I don't expect to like what's going on because Master Race was really bad.
Yeah, I think it depends on like when this book is released. If there's like also like a bunch of other stuff that's being released at the same time. But Raphael Grandpa is like a guy who doesn't do like a whole lot of work. Like he does covers sometimes. The last like interiors he did on a book was Batman Black and White in 2013, and it was for a single issue. And he's done like other like little short stories. Like he had a Wolverine story in Strange Tales 2, issue 1, that was just so good.
Most of what I know him from is like covers. Like he's a covers guy.
He has like a book that he wrote and drew called Mesmo Delivery. That's like really great. It's like 18 pages. It's not very long. But that was like the book I discovered him on, and I just like fell in love ever since. And the last time I heard about him is he was doing bottle designs for Absolute Vodka. Like he's like one of those guys. He's like one of those guys.
Like a real artist.
Yeah, he's like a real artist who like also does like work outside of comics, and that's where he makes most of his money. And so it's like, you know, he doesn't have to do the grind of monthly comics. So him doing a DC book feels like a big deal, at least to me.
I think him doing like a big book, it's probably two reasons. It's one, it's Batman, which will pull in a lot of people, and then as much as people don't like Frank Miller, he's still Frank Miller.
Evidently, All-Star Superman? Is that what that book is called?
Yes. I've only read issue 1.
Is it Superman Year 1?
Year one, yeah.
I hear it's good, but
I disagree. I really did not like it at all. He joins the Navy or Air Force?
Oh, it was Army.
Yeah, there's a podcast I listen to called iFanboy, and the guys on the podcast are a lot older than, not like super older, but they're like about 10 to 15 years older than me. And so I kind of feel like when I'm like listening to them talk about comics, they're not like super into kind of like these, you know, newer characters sometimes. And I feel like a lot of the things that they like are older writers. They love Astro City. They kind of like love the idea of like golden age of heroes. And it feels like that Frank Miller Superman book is totally up their alley, because that's basically like what it is, you know. But Frank Miller's got to do a whole lot to get me back into his graces.
Well, him not drawing the book is a huge plus. I just dropped like a bunch of Raphael art in here.
Yeah, him not coloring the book is a big deal.
Which I love. That Daredevil, the reason I posted that first is like, one, I am a fan of the yellow Daredevil costume.
Yep.
Yeah,
but I love the way it's textured and everything.
Yeah, the fabric, the kneecaps, like his boots looking like boxing boots.
Mm-hmm. And his gloves too. Like, it's perfect.
Yeah. Oh man.
That's why, like, even if you look at the X-Men or the Strange Tales ones, like Wolverine, you see a lot of that. Like, his cap looks good.
God, I remember this Uncanny X-Force cover. It's
so
the
Phantom X and Deadpool. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll try and see if I can find this Wolverine Strange Tales story and put it into.
Is it Wolverine versus the Hand?
No, it's just called Dear Logan. Is the name of the story. But yeah, it's just like, it's like this woman writing a note to Logan, you know, basically saying goodbye, and it's Logan fighting. I forgot like who it is. It's like a Black Tom Cassidy or like someone in like a ring, and Wolverine's being like worked over, and the worse he's getting worked over.
Is it this image I just dropped in there?
Like the bigger, yeah. Oh my god, yeah. And like the more he's getting worked over, like the more like he smiles and cackles, and
his mask is almost like a lucha libre style.
Yeah,
which I kind of really dig. But like, I like how like grit, like this, like as much as it's not like the Wolverine costume.
Oh, he's fighting. He's fighting a guy who looks like Deadpool. Like he has like the Deadpool mask.
Was it that other weird Deadpool that was like around for a while?
Other Pool or reverse Deadpool? Yeah.
No, so Strange Tales is like super great, and I like, if I were to like recommend anything, it's Strange Tales Volume 1 and Volume 2. And what was really cool about it was it took like a bunch of like super underground or indie artists or people from the animation industry or whatever, and like let them do whatever with their characters for like, you know, 5 to 6 pages or even a page.
Cool.
And
they
so
made
you had,
a statue of this Daredevil.
What?
But yeah, like there's Yanan Vasquez Wolverine story, like Yanan Vasquez who created like Invader Zim and John the Homicidal Maniac.
I want to read that. I want to read that right now. Then I didn't know that.
There's like a Perry Bible Fellowship, Galactus story. Yeah, there's just like a ton of just really great short stories. And like half the artists I discovered like in the indie scene were from like these 2 volumes of Strange Tales. And it like to this day it kills me that Marvel has not done like a new Strange Tales.
Yeah, I'm literally just flipping through like his art, and he has such a very specific art style. I love it. I just found like a really cool Batwoman one.
Yeah, like no one does art that looks like Raphael Grandpa.
Yeah, it's like it's very like painty. Like I found if this is him, his Joker is really interesting looking.
Yep, that's him.
Yeah, it's Batman from Batman Black and White.
Yep. Like, yeah. That book is also, like, super rad, because it was basically, like, Strange Tales, but it was Batman, and it was a bunch of people doing, like, their short-form Batman, like, stories.
Sick. Yeah, I just added, I'm gonna get both of those Strange Tales. I didn't know they existed.
He is a name that I've heard for years, and, like, I've seen his art, but, like, so that's why, like, as much as I'm like, I don't really give a shit about what Frank Miller's doing, like, I want his art, and him drawing, like, his stuff that he's done with Batman is great. And I've seen, like, he's done a couple of things with Superman, like, that second image is, like, the Batman and Damian, like, it's weird to say, like, I really like how he does fabric.
Yeah.
It's kind of like the thing he does, like, the faces are good, too, I kind of like that, but I do really like the way he is able to show like layering of fabric is something different.
Yeah, like it creases, and the way he shades it is very unique.
God, maybe I'll just like grab my copy of Strange Tales and I'll just like take pictures of that chapter and I'll just put it into the Discord for like for you guys to like look at later.
Please, if you have the time.
All right. I think probably get to these other news stories so we can get into House of X.
Yeah. So we brought up last week that Marvel was going to be bringing in Solomon Kane, Dark Agnes, some other Robert E. Howard creations into the Marvel U, and it was revealed that Jim Zub, who's like a pretty cool writer at Marvel right now, he does like I discovered him doing Street Fighter comics years ago, but he's been doing like a lot of like really cool stuff. He's going to be doing a book called Conan Serpent War, and it's going to be a 4-issue mini starting in December with art by Scott Eaton and Stefan Segovia. But the big twist of this is that Moon Knight's involved.
Cool.
I feel like this is like somehow like through the ether that like Moon Knight is like, because of like the show coming out, they're like, all right, we have to pump Moon Knight into everything, which I am not mad about. But I think this is kind of he is a character that I think could really excel in this world because he's fucking crazy.
Yeah.
I mean, like, also, I don't know, when does the world of Conan coexist with the Egyptian god world?
Yeah. It would. Like, if he could just be like with Kushnu and all that stuff, yeah. Because I think he's supposed to be Sumerian. Is that what Conan is?
Yeah.
Yeah, which would be like kind of Middle Eastern, like Iraq, kind of. Or Saudi Arabia area. Like, he's not supposed to be like I don't know. It's like that weird Robert E. Howard thing where he's definitely like a giant white guy, but
I guess it doesn't matter because like also you have someone from the modern age and then this Puritan guy and then this Dark Agnes pirate. So you know, it's like I don't know who this is like really for, but I imagine with Jim Zub writing it, it's at least going to be fun.
Mhm.
But I'm not like super enthralled with any of these characters, so it's not for me. But it's it's for someone probably.
All right.
So 2 books also got canceled this week. First off, DC announced the cancellation of Deathstroke in December with issue 50, which I don't know, man. 50 issues in the modern day is not so bad.
I had been reading the story. I can't remember when I dropped it. It was a while ago. I know that people love Deathstroke. I don't think he's a character that can really carry his own book because he's a villain. Like there's no way to get around it. So
I was surprised to find he had like a 50-issue book.
it's a lot about his 2 kids that are still alive.
Okay.
But like they did a whole
like
they did
Rose
about
and
Rose and Joseph.
Yeah. Jericho?
Jericho. Well, he has like Jericho's like his hero name.
Yeah.
But they did some goofy shit with his powers and the suit.
Jericho's not great.
No.
I mean, I think Rose is pretty great.
Well, they did goofy stuff with her where like her sword was like an ancient Chinese spirit that possessed her.
Oh.
Yeah, like it's not like it was not the greatest book. And then they de-aged him at one point and he got his other eye back.
I saw that they made him, instead of like daddy grandpa, into more daddy, and I was like, okay, I guess. I mean, that's just like how it's, I can't knock DC for de-aging Deathstroke when Magneto is always looking like, in his early 40s.
Yeah.
I was talking in to some of the other guys during like before recording one of the other shows, and like the only thing I've ever seen to explain Magneto is X-Men Evolution, and they do a whole episode where they basically
I remember that.
Yeah, where they reveal that he's like searching for Captain America because he's been using like kind of these like shitty samples of his blood to create a serum to keep him from aging.
Mm-hmm.
And so that and that's basically like he's using like the super soldier serum to kind of maintain his age.
Did you happen to hear in the Mark Waid, the history of the Marvel U, they made up like a fake war to kind of explain the ages of certain characters?
I have not read the 3rd one, just came out. I did not read 2 and 3 yet.
Yeah, I'm trade waiting. Because I feel like that's like a story I kind of want to read in like one big collection.
Yeah, I really like the covers, which is one of the main reasons I picked it up.
But there's like some things that I have seen that makes me very happy. Like there's like a page that's dedicated to Mystique and Destiny, and they show them kissing on the page, and it's like one of those relationships that's always been implied but never like fully dunked. And so like finally like seeing it's like after 30 years it's like, oh, finally these characters, they're here. But evidently they created a fake, or like a war that's not real, to basically put the characters like Tony Stark and Frank Castle and some of these characters who are like indicative of a certain age, to fix the time scale slide. But like the kind of the problem with it is that Frank Miller's whole antithesis is that he is a creation of like the Vietnam era.
Or Castle. Yeah, but he can kind of like his story can kind of move into like either Iraq War very easily, as opposed to Magneto, who is so tied to the
World War
Holocaust.
II.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm like looking at it must have been in like one of the other because in 3 they show like the Avengers like teaming up, but like I don't see anything about this war.
Are you talking about powers?
No. In the history of the Marvel Universe.
Oh, I thought you were talking about powers because there was. Now we'll get into that. I always like figure like mutants would just age slowly than different like humans, like because obviously Wolverine ages slowly, but I don't because
I have to read this more closely to see if there's like an actual.
It's like a Asia war.
Because I'm flipping through it and like, oh, here's Inhumans, Fantastic Four, the Krull and the Kree, Franklin's birth,
the Cyan Kong War. That it's like the war that they created within the book that like fixed the sliding time scale.
Okay, yeah, I see it. It's like way further down, or way further into the book. It's post when the first time the Illuminati met. Mm-hmm. Yeah, Cyan Kong veteran Marine. It's basically like a not Vietnam.
Yeah, which I don't know. I feel like the entire idea of the Marvel U is that it's so rooted within like the world history. It's like stuff with Captain America, the stuff with Magneto. Yeah. Like
it's the problem. The difference between DC and Marvel is that Marvel is so tied to the real world, and DC is not as much. So that's why like it has like all those issues.
Yeah. Yeah, until Doomsday Clock, really.
One more issue.
Yeah, I'm trying to find the panel that you were talking about with Mystique. It's in issue 3.
It's I shared it on Twitter. I'll go find it. But the last story is, or at least last story I want to bring up, basically, is that Future Foundation was canceled, which is like really too bad because it was written by Jeremy Whitley, who I feel like is one of the most underrated writers in comics right now. He was also the writer for Unstoppable Wasp, which also got canceled, and then based off the strong sales of the trade, they brought it back for like another short series. And it's like, I don't know. I don't like this idea within comics of canceling a series before it even has hit the ground running. Like Future Foundation #3 comes out October 2nd. There are like literally 2 issues of this book, and it was already canceled. It kind of reminds me of when a couple of years ago, Marvel did a new Exiles book, and not the one that went to 12 issues, but like one prior to that. And I forgot like who was writing it, but it was like a writer I really loved. And the first issue was great, and then by the second issue, they were like, "Oh yeah, it's canceled." And so like the fifth issue was like this. You could tell like this planning that they had for like the next 20 issues were all just condensed within one issue. And it's just like really disheartening when you hear the editor-in-chief of Marvel talk about how like everything's fine, how they distribute their comics is fine, their relationship with comic book shops are fine, and they get like mad that that comic writers nowadays are writing issue to issue instead of planning a whole arc or a whole series. And then you look at the Future Foundation, it's like, well, how are they supposed to? When you're not even giving a chance for a book to breathe. Like, at least give it 12 issues. So, and then there was like another thing where people were messaging Jeremy Whitley about how, they were waiting for trade, and now they feel like because they didn't buy it as a single issue, they feel responsible for not supporting the series, which is super fucked because you don't want your audience to feel bad that because they decided to wait for a different form of how to pick up this book, that they're the direct cause of why this book got canceled.
Yeah. The problem seems to be more of like the changing in the way people consume things, and companies aren't really understanding that, and it's kind of hitting the comic book industry of like, which I'm sure it's been happening for a long time, the trader waiting, but like that's kind of more ingrained in people now, with the way that they get television shows and stuff like that, even referring to them as television shows. Now this image is definitely from issue 2, not 3 then, because I flipped through the whole thing. Yeah, so I think that's kind of the problem, is that like they don't really know how to deal with it. So they're like, oh, the sales aren't great, but it's like, oh, if you hear, like you just said on this book, The History of the Marvel Universe, like you're waiting on it. Maybe it's a little bit easier for them to like stick with it because it's like what it is. But like I'm sure lots of people do that for everything. Like there's plenty of stuff that like I'm going to wait until like the whole thing is out because I don't want to spend like $4 or $5 a book on each one rather than like 20 on the whole set.
Yeah. And like I also brought up like Unstoppable Wasp as like a book that was canceled, then based off the trade sales was brought back again, and also around the same time Iceman was canceled and then brought back for the second trade. And then just like why do we have to like live in a world where like a book is canceled and then it's like, oh, the trades are great, like, oh, like, well, we should have done more. And I'm like, yeah, maybe if you just continued the series and not had just canceled it early. But like also Marvel's releasing like 100 to 115 books like on any given month. There's just too many books.
That's insane.
It's like too many titles releasing per month. Like I mean, like, and we're just like getting to a point where we just like we're talking about that Conan book. How many Conan books are there? There's like
I feel
5 or 6 Conan books.
Yeah.
And it's like if like Conan is not Wolverine, like I could it's like I could honestly see like Wolverine like having like him showing up in his
it was only 2 characters in like all of comics that would have that many books. It was like Wolverine and Spider-Man. Like not even Batman has that many books. Batman at most has like 3 or 4.
Yeah, there are more Conan books currently being produced right now than there are Batman books on a monthly basis.
That was actually brought up in like the Loki book that came out this week. They're like, how many Spider-Man books does he have? The guys are like, there's too many books. There's too many books.
I didn't even know that Loki book was out. And
it's on issue 3 right now.
There's 3 issues of a current Loki book, and I like saw on Reddit like a post about it this week, and I messaged one of my friends. I was like, "How's this Loki book? I just found out about it." And like I am someone who at least like tries to keep a finger on the pulse of like what's going on in the comics industry, and I didn't know that there were 3 issues of a Loki book currently. I knew there was a Loki book coming out. I didn't know there were 3 issues of it already.
Yeah, it's actually not bad. It's just him like being Loki, trying not to be evil for once, running Jotunheim.
Yeah, but
pissing everyone off.
And there's just like so many books like that. Like it's like Valkyrie's really good. I imagine Future Foundation was really good because Jeremy Whitley doesn't do bad books. Like Runaway, like Rainbow Rowell, who writes Runaways, was talking about this week. How it's like she's finishing up like the newest arc on Runaways, and she did like hopefully we get a next arc, and it's just like that book is so good, and it's like one of honestly like the best books, not only at Marvel. I think it's like one of the best books in comics right now, and like that book should get like a 50 issue run at least. And it's like the idea that it's like this this creator is like, hopefully we get a next run. It's like, it's heartbreaking. And it's like, books like that get lost in the shuffle because, Amazing Spider-Man's not going to get canceled. Fantastic Four is not going to get canceled. Fantastic Four is not going to get Fantastic Four is not going to get canceled now, But, it's a lot of these, it's a lot of these little books that I feel like are going to get lost in the shuffle.
Well, it's hard because it's like, they still have to make money, but the problem is they have no patience. So it's like 2 issues and that's it, which like it's not like it's just Marvel. Like DC has done that in the past. Like when they did New 52, I think Static got to 3 before it got canceled, which that book was fine.
That book got
like,
5 issues.
Yeah, but it got canceled, I think, at 3, and the other 2 already made.
Yeah.
So like I understand it, but it's also like it's so limiting the creativity. But it's like I think it has to do with like some of the companies have to realize, which weirdly Marvel's tends to be better at, what the comic books are, and that like they're kind of never going to be a moneymaker. Like it's just not how that works anymore.
Well, the comics are idea factories.
Mm-hmm. And like canceling those books before, like you should at least get them have like 1 full story out as part of the deal. I wonder if, and it's probably would be very hard if people in the industry could like have contracts where it's like it's a guaranteed number of issues for the book. And that could be something that could change, but like I don't know how much power like artists and writers would have for the bigger companies to do something like that in a contract.
Yeah. I think, you know, it's like there was a year at Eisner's where there was like a bunch of Marvel books that were nominated for Eisner Awards, and all but one of them were canceled. And it's like,
if they're not going to learn from that, then there's nothing really that's going to change their mind.
And it's like a sad state of affairs, man.
Yeah, but again, like you said, it's a way to like kind of play with ideas, and you know, if those characters aren't ones that they are necessarily going to be pushing in other mediums, I can like it kind of makes financial sense for them, but it just sucks for fans and people who want good stories.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so I think it's time we dive into House of X.
Yes.
Before House of X, can I talk about a comic I read this week, or do we want to do like that afterward?
Let's do it now.
Yeah, let's talk about it. What's up?
So speaking of Rainbow Rowell, I picked up a new book from her along with artist Faith Erin Hicks. I love Faith Erin Hicks. Like she's done like a lot of books for First Second Press, and she just got done doing like this really cool 3-part epic called The Divided City that I thought was really good. So it was like kind of like nice to see them get back to like bread and butter with a book like this, which was called Pumpkinheads. And it's basically like set. It all takes place in like this night. And it's about these 2 friends who every summer they work at this. It's like I don't think it's like a farm, but it's like a big kind of like a farm event center where they have like hay bale rides, and they have like booths where they sell like kettle corn and succotash and like all this other stuff. So it's like a rural farm, like a rural circus almost.
Yeah, like a fair, like a fall, like a fall
fair.
Summer fair thing.
Yeah, so it's basically about these 2 friends who've like worked together like every summer, and it's like their last night working before they, you know, go off and do stuff at college. And the one friend is like kind of in love with this girl from a distance and has never said anything. And you know, his best friend, she like decides like, okay, like we're going to go and try and find her. And we're gonna like leave our booth behind, and we're gonna go and try and like find her, and you're going to confess to her. And so the entire book is them trying to find her from all these like different booths, and like being just a second behind, and you get to kind of like see this entire fair, and it's like really nice and super down to earth. And it's just like young romance stuff, which I super love, and I thought it was like a lot of fun. Like this is like a book that Faith Erin Hicks hasn't done in a while. Most people would also kind of like know her art from, she does a fair bit of Avatar: The Last Airbender comics.
I I knew I recognized her art. I knew it.
But yeah, she's good. I think this book is great. If young romance kind of stuff is not for everyone, but I think Rainbow Rowell is, I think like a lot of people, when they're predominantly known for being an author of books, like their transition to comics is a little, rigid because comics medium and book medium are two completely different things. But like Rainbow Rowell is so good. It's like her Runaways book starts off great, and that's like her introduction to doing comics. And then just like seeing this and like reading it, it's just like she's like amazing. And it's like if this Runaways book like ends, I hope she just does comics forever because she's so good at it, and her stories are so fun.
Some people just get it, and those are the good ones. I'm gonna check this book out, and I'm gonna check out the other Runaway books because you've said nothing but good about Runaways for I think like 9 months now.
Yeah.
So I think I owe it on myself to finally pick it up.
Here, I have to pick up a phone call real fast. I'm gonna mute my mic real fast.
All right.
All
Good
right.
luck.
So, sorry, I'm trying to. While he was talking about that, I was trying to translate the end of House of X, the Krakoan.
Oh yeah, no, I actually haven't seen anything about that. So
to go before we talk, so John had shared on the Phantom Zone thing. There was like a review last week that somebody did. I'm gonna pull it up while he's on his phone call because there was a bunch of, and I actually did want to talk about it. Of the translations, I think were very interesting in what they mean.
okay.
So that was for Powers 4. That was the one with like the kind of burn book thing.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, that was a couple weeks ago.
It was the last issue, I believe.
Was it?
Yes.
Oh yeah. I got the order reversed.
I'm back.
Okay, so I was going to talk about like the thing that you posted about the last one I wanted to touch on before we jumped into the new one. So there's the images from the past where, so like the hat that Xavier is wearing in the last one, and his costume is very similar to that of his pseudo sister Cassandra Nova.
Not pseudo sister, total sister. Like Cassandra
it's
Nova.
Like a weird, yeah.
Cassandra Nova is the twin sister of Charles Xavier that Xavier consumed in the womb.
What?
Yes.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
Think of like the Venture Brothers when Dr. Venture absorbed his brother.
Okay.
And then later on he just like spat him out.
And he's the more successful brother.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So one of the things though, because there was like the translations there's like one during the what do you call it? The Sinister stuff. And it translated to, what was it, Lies, I believe?
Oh, we're talking about Sinister Secrets?
Yeah, I think like the last one, it says like, it's like the translation of the Krakoan is Lies.
Yeah. Who's lying?
Yeah. So we don't know. I did just do the translation for the end part of this book. And it says it says for the children. And then the last one that's on its own isn't in the cipher.
Oh.
Which is interesting. So yeah, it says like for the children, but then there's like that last symbol on its own.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not in the cipher.
That probably like that means something then.
Yeah, it's where it's like the dash, the 2 lines with the dots above them, and then dash.
Mm-hmm.
That's not in the cipher that I looked up. But so let us talk about how a mutant I've never heard of is one of the most important mutants in this world, which we talked about earlier. Gold Balls.
Oh yeah.
Okay. Oh
yeah. Okay, so
Let's talk
To-
about our glorious
okay,
golden god.
wait. So previously on House of X, the X-Men died, trying
Wah, wah.
to stop Mother Mold from going online. That would have created at some point Nimrod, and yeah. So Jean Grey, Wolverine, Nightcrawler, Husk, Monet, Secroy, a bunch of others, all died.
Cyclops, Angel. I think
I
there was
like
like
how-
one more.
I like how I named Monet Secroy, and I forgot Cyclops.
You forgot Cyclops and Angel.
Well, everyone forgets Angel.
Well, they all
He
die
didn't
when they
even
went into
say
space.
anything.
Yeah,
He
that's what I'm saying,
said
the-
nothing.
Well, yeah, Angel and Husk die on like when the thing explodes.
Yeah. And even
So-
in this issue, he just stands there. You don't even get to hear what he says.
So, this issue starts off with Magneto and Polaris basically talking about, Krakoa, all this other stuff, and then you have, like the Five come in, and
The
Five,
badass like Stone Cold entrance.
yeah. So the Five are Gold Balls, Proteus, Elixir, Tempest, and Hope, and
Which two of those are Omega level mutants.
yeah. So there's like a slight retcon for Gold Balls, because it just used to be that he would just shoot these gold balls like out of his body. But it's like revealed that the balls aren't just balls, they're eggs. And so
Well, they kind of explained that like he's never like really seen what they could do, or like
it's
what
like, why
the-
would you?
Well, we've known what
Yeah.
he is for years, since like the late 60s. He's the Eggman.
No,
Yeah.
well, Gold Balls is the Eggman Cuckoo Hichu.
Okay, thank you.
Gold Balls is a Brian Michael Bendis created mutant.
Yeah, so like it is a character I've never heard of like the group. He was like the one I've like really never heard of. But we also
Tempest was the one I like really never heard of. Or I completely forgot about her.
yeah. Which this whole issue explains kind of one of the things I've been talking about, which is what the shit was that stuff that we saw in the first issue, where it's obviously Cyclops and Jean Grey coming out of those pods. This is the explanation for all of that shit.
We all thought it was like Sinister in the beginning, like making pods.
Well, you were kinda right, but let's hold on.
So you have the lead up to them going to Bar Sinister, setting up a DNA registry for
the library.
mutants. The library. And then it's also revealed that they have this library because Cerebro has like the mind and makeup of
that was a huge reveal in this book.
Yeah, has the mind makeup of every mutant that he comes in contact with.
I'm trying to think of a movie that does something like this, but like it's kind of like it's like Cerebro records your mind was it like once a week, it says?
Yeah.
It's that movie with Bruce Willis. It's like that it was like that movie with Bruce Willis when you lay down on the bed and it copies your mind and puts you like in a robot, like a younger version of yourself for like forever how long. He was like an FBI agent.
Mm-hmm.
I know the movie you're talking about. Yeah, but it kind of no. Oh my god, I know the movie now. It's a terrible movie. What did this? It was an Arnold Schwarzenegger movie.
Was it not Total Recall? Was it?
No. It's an Arnold Schwarzenegger movie about cloning, and the whole premise of the movie.
Yeah, because he goes out to get his like dog.
Yes,
clones.
that is exactly the one.
Oh my god, dude! I thought that was a fever dream. Holy shit!
The sixth day, because it's like
yeah.
And like, because there's like, you can't do cloning, and he puts his face in this thing, and it records his memories from that moment. So, and what you learn, the big twist of that movie is the character you've been following isn't original Arnold; it's clone Arnold, and that's why his memory. And they're like, "Oh, you were here like yesterday." He's like, "What are you talking about?" It's because he's doing all the stuff his other self, the real self, did. But it's basically that. So, like, Cerebro downloads and they back up your brain of all mutants. Their brainwaves to several different sites across the world.
you have the mind, and Sinister has like the DNA makeup of those people. So like even though Cyclops died, the Cyclops that comes out of these pods is exactly that Cyclops.
Yes.
It's dealing with transhumanism now, which is
Well,
interesting.
it's been like kind of the whole thing. It's kind of like
A safe point.
I was gonna say, like, have any of you ever watched the anime Log Horizon?
No.
I know of Log Horizon. I have not watched it.
Because a lot of the stuff that they talk about kind of plays into it with the anima, and because it's people from a video game trapped in there, and it's kind of like Respawn, and like basically they respawn your body, but your mind isn't from your body. The quote unquote soul, and they actually use the word anima in here, is like your mind, and it gets transferred into your husk body. And so there is always a loss. So like the ones that are resurrected, they don't have the memories post this brain scan. So probably all the memories of them fighting on the mother mold thing and dying. So like there is some sort of missing there between that. But otherwise, they're basically the same person.
Yeah,
which basically says that there's no souls in this universe.
I mean, which is like kind of weird for like a guy like Nightcrawler who's all about that Catholicism.
Mhm.
Like there is literally a arc where the X-Men go to heaven and fight Azazel, and Nightcrawler is a pirate in heaven.
Hell yeah, of course he is.
Well, yeah, both Marvel and DC have played with hell and heaven a lot.
So I imagine like the idea of this will get the ire of at least Mephisto at some point.
Well, because there like 17 Wolverines running around in goddamn hell at this point, like because they like because we'll get into it. I just want to. So the process is Gold Balls unleashes the eggs which grow, but they're unviable eggs, and they're human like
unfertilized eggs.
Well, they're unviable specifically, they say, but they're like
giant.
But they're made out of human or mutant DNA inside. And Proteus's part in it is that he uses his reality warping things to make them from unviable to viable.
He seminates the eggs.
Yes, then, well, he doesn't seminate them. He makes them fertile.
He makes them fertile.
And then they inject the DNA, which is the insemination, which the Hope does it, and the injector has the Sinister diamond on it.
Yeah, so the DNA is from Sinister.
I feel like I have to do like the DNA fucking Jurassic
Park.
From
dinosaurs.
Dinosaurs.
Mutant DNA.
Mutant DNA gets injected into the egg, and then the mutant elixir comes and gives his life power to kickstart the process.
That was very good.
which I didn't realize, like, Elixir was alive again, because he died during...
Well, that gets into a part I want to talk about, that they kind of
bring back everyone who died.
Which we'll get to, because that was the mind-blowing part of I feel like, the book.
And so they go back, and then they use Eva Bell to turn time up so that they hatch early. And then they use Hope to increase everyone's power.
Which, like, I like, because, like, the whole entire idea of Hope Summers is that she is the mutant messiah. Like, she's the first mutant that's born post-M-Day. She's, goes, through the time stream with Cable, and she's, like, supposed to be, like, this great herald of mutants to come. And then it's, like, she was kind of taken off the table post.
She's OP. That's the problem. And this is certainly giving her a reason to be and not be OP.
I think it's not just because she's OP, because X-Men have a lot of OP characters. I feel like, she was such a big character for, certain creators that when those creators got handed off to, like, other creators, they didn't really know what to do with them. Which is, like, kind of the problem with the X-Men for a while, is that people want to write the team that they want to write, and so, like, it's worse off for young X-Men characters because they're always the ones that are cast aside because they're the ones with the less history. They're the ones that more have like that creator's imprint, and you never see them again. But it's really nice to see Hope, who is like a big central character within at least the modern expectations of X-Men, being a part of like this new utopia.
Yeah, and she does like her part of the process is twofold. So she both increases the abilities of the other 4 members so that they are like at perfection, but she also, the people in the pod, she also develops their like powers to their epitome level as well, like kind of force evolves them, their peak.
Yeah.
And then this is where Cerebro head Xavier then downloads their brains into their bodies, like their minds, and then
also,
they're all nakedy for the rest of the issue.
Okay, so there's like one thing like I also think is like kind of important is like Lorna calls Magneto father, so at least we know now, at least now, that in this current timeline or this current interpretation of X-Men, that Lorna is the daughter of Magneto. Because that's like one of those on again, off again kind of things that depends upon like,
well, it's like
whoever wants the writer for the time.
Oh,
yeah,
really?
Currently, it seems that Scarlet Witch and Quicksilver are off again because they're not in any of this stuff, are they? I don't remember them being in any of them.
So currently, Wanda and PHO are Inhumans.
They're Inhumans / creations of the Ultra Humanite.
Yes,
I believe.
I do not envision that to be a thing for very much longer.
Now that Disney owns the Fox again, that'll be fixed.
Yeah,
I did think so. The next part, was there any other parts to this like first junction that we wanted to talk about?
I had a question. Since they're all being cloned and reborn, like, why is Cyclops still using a visor like he can't see? And like, does Wolverine have his adamantium back? Because
that was a big question. I don't think Wolverine, at least this one, seems to probably be the first time that they're bringing Wolverine back. So this Wolverine would definitely be Bone Claw. Cyclops with the visor, I think it's more like his part of his.
He handed him the visor.
Yeah, he like pops it on his face. I think
that's because there was like sparks coming out of his eyes, though. There was like it's about to go off, like as soon as he opened his eye.
I think his eyes were open. I think it's more like, when I download your brain, like you're gonna like blast everything because you can't control it. But like everybody else that gets up is kind of in their form because like, Angel has his wings and like everybody's all back together. Who was the blonde woman that they resurrected? I don't remember that character.
Husk.
Oh, okay.
But then the reveal of the people in the pods and them crawling out is like the same 2 pages from issue 1. Of House of X.
That's so cool. I think that's great. So fucking cool.
I love that. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, and it's can I just talk about why it's very weird to me? And again, I will go back to I am still not 100% sold that this is Xavier. So when Xavier goes, like right before he says to me, my X-Men, he's in this weird ass pose that's like kind of, I don't want to say feminine, but it's like posy. And it still makes me think it might be a Sinister in there.
Yeah, Sinister.
Do you know which panel page I'm talking about? It's where like he puts his hand underneath Cyclops' face and then he's like...
He does the Iron Man thing?
Yeah, he has like his hands to the side, but it's very like not Xavier.
Well, he could be like aiming his hands at like the other 2 on his sides to like deal with their mind. Like he's like trying to like grasp their mind or something like that.
It's super dramatic though.
Yeah.
Especially like the way he holds his hands and the way he poses. Doesn't seem very Xavier to me.
I think there's like definitely like something up with Xavier that will be revealed in the next 3 issues.
So we only have 3 more issues from the end.
About to end.
Yeah, it's almost done.
So
there's like 6, including like Powers.
Yeah. Well, yeah. There's 1 more issue of House and 2 more issues of Powers. That's it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Which we'll get to kind of like my own thoughts. So our next chunk of section is the Storm.
Which, by the way, I also like one of you brought up that the idea that the red issues are like the red tinted.
I think Connor originally brought
that. That was me.
Yeah, where like, oh, like that's where the big stuff happens. I did not actually put two together on that until you said something, and then I was like, oh, you're right. Like that's when like actual big reveal stuff kind of happens.
Yeah, that's the first one was Moira, the Moira X thing.
Yeah.
Yep. Then there's this fucking bombshell.
And then the next one is the final Powers 6.
Yeah, which is interesting. I like that Powers is actually going to be one of the important ones, because so far Powers has just been kind of this weird supplementary thing that Hickman can just kind of dump some of his weird esoteric writings in, but it seems like he actually has a purpose behind it. Like a weird purpose, obviously.
Okay, so the next part's like super rad, and it's Storm basically like telling this crowd of mutants like, here are like the people who protected you, like, you know, who are they? And they're like chanting like mutants. It's like, who are they? And it's so good. I love it.
That's such a like cool moment.
Like,
the one between him and her and Cyclops was so cool.
It's like, we see them, but do we know them? Like, what is your name? Cyclops. Scott Summers. And how do I know you, brother? Once I thought I was strong, a leader of mutants, and then you showed me what strong was. I learned it from watching you, says Storm.
This is my
brother. This is my brother. I know him. As do you. Yes, his name is Cyclops, but he is more than that. What is he? The crowd chants, mutant. It's so good.
Like, this is like very reminiscent. Well, there's like the first panel where it's like they're all like butt ass naked, like
they're
just
all
standing,
naked.
Yeah, just like and gooey, like naked and gooey.
Naked and gooey.
And like specifically, you have like Angel with his wings spread, like coming in, and then like they do the Jean Grey one, and it's like, oh, I'm the only me that ever was Oro.
Which looks like a call. Like, I didn't know it was a callback to some Chris Claremont comic from the 1980s.
What? Really?
Yeah.
Well, it's also a call to like she's been cloned a bunch of times.
Yeah. Also that. Yeah.
Yeah. And then you have Monet St. Croix penance, and she's like, "Don't touch me."
It's like, and Storm's like, "I know her. This is her."
I had a like question, like, why are they still referring themselves as mutant? Like,
I think it's
like,
I think it's probably too much to write Homo superior.
No, they can just yell superior instead of like mutant the entire time.
I think
that has some connotations, my guy.
I think it's owning the word.
Yeah.
I think that's a big part of it. Is
that would be like if there was like a bunch of African Americans and they're all gathered around, they start shouting the N-word. That'd be
kind of, yeah. Like if you think of like, yeah, no, actually, yes. Like,
well, X-Men are that was that whole era, so that's like,
X-Men have always been the
minority.
Well, yes, they're a minority story, and then at different times it's like they represent like gay culture or just like minorities in general. Like they have always been that kind of representation. I do like, so there's like the one shot where they show all the fists up, and I was like, ooh, how many fists can I pick out? And there's one, and that's Colossus.
Yeah, it's me too, right? I was like, I can only pick out Colossus.
I was like, it's so obvious.
Oh yeah, in the crowd there's Glob Herman, which I think is pretty good.
There's a bunch of characters in the crowd, which is interesting. But yeah, I do like this whole part, and I'm trying to like remember as I'm like rereading this. This is when Xavier and Magneto have their conversation, and it's, you know, I should be weeping for joy because this is so amazing. And then Xavier's like, they killed millions of us. So many remain lost, but this is good work. And he's like, you know, we have to continue until Genosha's kind of seen as a crucible, not a grave. And basically like, oh, then it gets into the whole UN thing, which is kind of the third section of this book.
Yeah.
So the break within this is basically like the resurrection process, like prose notes.
Yeah, I would say there's like 5 breaks in this book. So the first one is the actual resurrection. The second one is the Storm thing. And then we have our kind of reading material that we get in every issue.
Yeah, so it's like the genetic base, to the host, to the 5 that are like the resurrectors,
Which I think the stuff with Proteus is really interesting. I was like, how does Proteus do this? Because in the past, Proteus is kind of parasitic, and they actually explain that like they kind of have to constantly have mindless bodies on the ready for Proteus to just constantly jump to, and those bodies are Xavier's.
Yeah, that's insane.
Yeah,
they could just be making those clones out of those eggs for Proteus.
Yes, no, that's exactly what they're doing. They're cloning Xavier over and over again because he can only do like 1 or 2 like batches before he has to jump to another body.
It seems really weird that you have a bunch of Xavier bodies on point. It'd be a shame if Xavier would overtake one of them and use them for his own ability.
Yeah.
But like this is also like in this breakdown or the resurrection process is also where we get like the mind stuff and the backups of the mind data.
Yes.
And then also the big Megaton thing
is the third
within
page?
this resurrection is this third page
talking
about the actual scale of like what Xavier wants to do, and he wants to resurrect 16 million mutants. That's everyone who has died in the mutant massacre.
Yeah.
The horrors of Genosha, the horrors of Neverland, the End Day stuff. Like people who have died as mutants. He wants to resurrect them all. Every single one of them.
So just to go, it says like, so they can do about 1,000 mutants a week or 200 a day. The population of mutant population on Earth is around 100,000 and growing. 16 million primarily from Genosha. It would take around 300 years to kind of get this done. But with the capabilities of everybody besides Xavier, they can get it done. They could do around 30,000 a week. So they could do it in 10 years. Xavier's the problem because he can only do about 6,000 people a day with his capabilities. Thus, they might need to train, or they will train other psychics to be able to use Cerebro. I do also think...
And I mean, like, you got, like, Emma, you got the Stepfords, you got, like, you know...
Well, they have, like, a shit ton of Stepfords, because, like, every time we see, there's, like, a lot of them, which goes back to, I think it was the Morrison... Was it the Morrison run with the New Mutants, where we're like, oh, there's, like, 1,000 Stepfords, and Sinister created all of them?
Yeah.
So we have that. I do think one of the parts that's interesting to me is them talking about the 5 and how they are seen, like, everybody loves them and follows them, but they're not seen as like specifically like a narcotic. They are seen as kind, like how they act as like fulfillment, and the people there see them as kind of this I'm trying to think of like a way. They're almost like religious, like a kind of like they are.
How did they describe it? It was very poetic how they talked about them.
It says, additionally, these 5 mutants appear to have become an inseparable family unit. Their symbolic process appears to have extended beyond their powers. Some call it psychological.
Yeah, no, so...
Not as celebrities, something achievable through works, but as cultural paragons, something sacred to be treasured.
I think there's something, like, really cool about the way that they are described there.
Yeah.
Like,
I love all, like, the pseudoscience Hickman's adding in here, because it's like, all right, so the resurrection process takes around 48 hours, 12 hours for the egg and the DNA, and 30 to 42 hours to mature that egg to the desired mutation.
Mm-hmm. Cool. Very cool.
And basically it goes into like they won't resurrect someone unless they have a body or a confirmed death because they don't want 2 people running around out there. And their thought is to create a force to kind of make sure that people are presumed are actually dead if they're presumed. Otherwise they wait a month and then they do it. And that so they wait a month and they want to make a thing, and then there are extra special people who get resurrected immediately, like this team. And then we enter basically the 3rd section, which is also really interesting, which is the Emma Frost section.
And Emma is just like choice.
Emma is like big pimpin', like I'm trying to find words, like she's just like dropping her pants and showing the room. constantly. Like, she is just like big dick energy all the time. And I love this version of Emma. And especially her conversation with Xavier, because basically it's
like okay, like Emma Frost is literally that 100% that bitch.
Yeah.
Oh, yes. Well,
Like-
she's the White Queen, and she's
Yeah.
that in every
And
emphasis.
I
of the
love
phrase.
and I love it. She's so good.
She's sassy in a way of like, are you questioning? Like, how dare you? And Xavier's like, no. I'm just saying we understand your sacrifice and we respect it and honor it. And she's like, okay.
Can I also appreciate, like, as good as Emma Frost like looks here, like this Xavier, like him in the black suit, like still rocking the helmet is like, oh look, it's a look. I love it.
I see. Part of me is like, is he actually there? Like, I can't tell if he's actually supposed to be there, or if it's like a mental projection. Because we see Emma's there, Beast is there, but then we don't really see much of anybody else. And then so basically, there was a UN vote to see, like, to legitimize Krakoa. They weren't sure it was going to go anyway. And Xavier's like, oh, I thought like the Russians were going to go, and Emma basically implies that she like mentally nudged the Russian ambassador.
Mm-hmm.
And then so we get the whole thing in Compulsion, like how that deals with you. But I guess Xavier's there because he's picking up the champagne. But yeah, he's in like a black on black, like 3-piece suit with an extremely, because the second page, it's like a very fancy vest, but he's still wearing this like the Cerebro helmet. But I do also like this Beast design a lot. Like, he's kind of slick backed and refined Catman Beast.
Yeah, that's kind of like the look of Beast has had for like a little bit.
Combed his hair finally, just combed it back.
But Emma's like in a outfit that is nowhere near professional. Like, it's a suit, but it's also like she definitely has no shirt under her jacket, kind of a thing.
It's perfect. It's
great. It's perfect for Emma. Yes.
I was just gonna say that's pretty Emma if I know anything about her.
And then there's
the diplomacy pages.
Yeah, so there's like an info dump about the mutant diplomacy, the continents and nations, or like the nations of said continents that have a reason for rejecting the idea of having Krakoa being its own sovereign nation.
Which only 2 of them are probably important, maybe 3. Which is Latveria and Wakanda.
Why did Latveria say no again?
Political reasons.
Political reasons, right?
Yeah, so they also have like a reason for rejection for some of these, like Wakanda.
Wakanda's like, we don't need your shit. Or Wakanda.
Yeah, they do not need mutant drugs.
But it's like, also in red. That means
also that.
Oh yes, that is actually you are correct on it. Everything I've been reading is like red is important. You're right.
Well, if you notice, there are no mutants like in Wakanda. Like none of them mutated at all.
That's actually not true. There are
besides
Wakandians.
No, I thought there was only that one that like migrated after he was born. The Power dude. I forget his name. I think his name is just Power.
I think his name's not Power, but like his power set is basically he had his like muscles like quadruple, but he has the Wakandian metal that keeps him in check.
Because I thought there was no other mutants besides that, because they were like, we're unradiated or anything, something like that. It was something along those lines.
God, what is this guy's name? Gentle.
There it is. Okay. He has like Hulk strength, but like he gets hurt. But they got rid of that with Jean Grey. Like it was like a mental block.
But like unlike Hulk, who grows to be the size of the Hulk, like Gentle can't grow that size, or it'll like tear apart his skin.
Yeah.
Like, so like the Wakandian metal keeps like the bulk of his body in check. Which is like a really cool idea.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I could have sworn there was no mutants in Wakanda.
That would be an interesting concept, because like mutants are genetic, and so if the Wakandan population is so isolationist that they're never introduced to the mutant genome, then it could theoretically, unless it evolved on its own separately there, never be introduced into their population pool.
I think like another part of the mutant diplomacy page where you have like a nation that projected it is Madripoor. Because like it makes
I've
sense.
missed Madripoor.
It makes sense, but like also B, I didn't know that Madripoor was its own nation. I thought Madripoor was just like a port.
They also didn't show the U.S.'s like agreement on the diplomacy matter.
The U.S. agreed.
U.S. agreed.
Whoever's not on the list agreed to them. So like all of North America, half of South America, like Chile and Colombia, all of Europe except for Latveria, China, Japan, South Korea, India, all of Africa except Wakanda, Australia. Yeah, the big map on the next 2 pages basically shows
it's also like very helpful to know where Latveria is now.
Yes. Well, it's always been like
I gotta look that up.
It is.
I also think it's
kind of like north. It's north of Turkey.
Okay.
It's kind of like by the Czech Republic.
Yeah.
I think it's also like pretty cool. I mean, I think it's like very like on the nose about how South America in like Brazil is against the mutant nation because of political reasons, given the current climate of Brazil.
Yeah. Well, I think you're mixing up. You're probably thinking specifically of not Brazil. Shit.
Venezuela.
No.
It's also Brazil.
Well, Brazil is like kind of has a very corrupt government. The one you're probably thinking of specifically though with Maduro is Venezuela.
Okay. Okay. So then we have like the last like 4 pages of this book.
They're so good. I love the.
So like Magneto and Xavier are just hanging out, and
we start with Wolverine first.
And Wolverine, and Wolverine is like, "Are you sure about this? We can change your mind. This could be a bad deal. Like, are you sure you want to do this?" And Xavier's like, let's do it. Like, sure.
Well, I love Magneto's like, would you be here? Would I be here?
Yeah. So Sage opens up the portals and lets not only the Marauders.
It's 3 separate groups. Well, kind of. It's 2 groups and a person.
Well, okay, so you have even the second group I think are like all different. So you have the Marauders, which is Sinister and Random and Lady Mastermind.
Is that Wild Child?
Yeah. That's great.
Possibly.
In the bottom left next to Random.
Sinister.
Yeah. And then
because I don't really recognize the other one. The second group, I recognize some more people.
Yeah, so there's like Sebastian Shaw, there's Celine, there's Shinobi Shaw. No, that's Kraken. There's Calypso.
Mm-hmm.
I think the person that's frontwards is the other Summers, the third Summers.
Oh, that's what's his name?
Vulcan.
Is that supposed to be Vulcan?
No, I thought that
I don't think it's Vulcan.
I don't think that's Vulcan. I think that's the who the hell ran that one group for a while. Shit. Because he looks very specific. It's like a very 90s character. I can't remember the name.
Let me see if I can pull it up because I have a list. Hold on one sec.
There's also like a really good guide to each issue of House of X or Hoxpox that's being done by the Xavier Files writer on Polygon right now, and looks like their review or their review of the latest issue is not out.
I had a question on that, but when the reveal happened, I had a question as soon as I saw it because Krakoa was only supposed to let only mutants in, yet Sinister walked right through that portal.
My thought is because that's the Sinister with the mutant genome in him. That's exactly what I thought.
Yeah, that makes a lot more sense because I was like, he's totally not a mutant.
But totally by next week, if we remember this, we could talk about who the other people within this image are. But the big one, the last panel, and Sabanur, Apocalypse, debatably the first mutant, comes right through the portal, and there's a big conversation with Wolverine and Apocalypse, where Apocalypse is because we do a callback to where Apocalypse fought
from the last
on
issue of
Krakoa.
Powers.
Yeah, fought on Krakoa and knows Krakoa from way back when because they're homies.
Yeah, he's talking to Krakoa. He's he's actually having a conversation with Krakoa.
Mm-hmm.
And this basically leads to the big moment that if these enemies of who happen to be mutants basically agree to the terms of the new island, the new nation of Krakoa, they can live on Krakoa, and Apocalypse speaks up for everyone and agrees to the terms, and Xavier welcomes Apocalypse to the new home of Krakoa.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the last page of this comic.
Which makes sense given we've talked about the books coming out, and Apocalypse is a team member on one of the X books.
Also, the quote, the last page quote, if you're with us, then be with us. Come home. Magneto.
Yeah, I think so. The one page, it says that one, or the one that has the X and it has Sinister's image. The bottom part says for the children. The page after that, I was just translating. It says, I am not ashamed of, I haven't finished, but I'm guessing it's what I am.
There's also an image of Sinister behind that.
Yeah, the one with Sinister says for the children. The one after that, where it's Storm and them, says I am not ashamed of, and I haven't finished translating it.
If you look at the panel when Apocalypse is agreeing to the terms, and you see the mutants in the background, you can totally see Marrow with her original design in the back, which is awesome. With with the giant bones coming out of her back. I was like, oh, that's so good. That's such a nice detail.
So it's Marrow, and then also next to her is Frenzy, who's a really cool mutant who shows up every so often.
Cool.
Yeah.
What's her deal? Or Frenzy's deal?
She's one of those kind of characters who just is a background character who kind of does some really cool stuff, but nothing super huge. She was once a part of the first time she shows up, I believe, is when they do what's that group that Cyclops was or not Cyclops, but Colossus was a part of? The Acolytes?
Yes. Oh, I actually think that. Okay.
With Fabian Cortez and Exodus and yeah, and so then afterwards she joins the X-Men, and she kind of putzes around for a little bit, but yeah, she's I think the last time she showed up in a book was probably
okay, that you just remind me. That guy we couldn't figure out. He is that leader. Sorry, he is the leader of the Acolytes. That's Exodus.
Oh,
that makes sense.
Yeah.
No, Frenzy's been in a lot more stuff. She's during AVX, she was in that, and she's a teacher at the Jean Grey School.
Okay. I did not read Avengers vs. X-Men, so I will believe you on that.
Yeah, there was a tie-in book with X-Force when she goes back to like Africa, and there's like a bunch of like warlords taking over the village, and she just like beats them all to death.
Gnarly, sweet.
Yeah, she fights She-Hulk in AVX too, which was
fuck yeah.
yeah.
I do think before we look at one of my favorite parts of this book is that it's when Wolverine is talking to Apocalypse, and it's like, oh, making yourself a little too comfortable. And he's like, comfortable is an inadequate word, but yes, I am comfortable. Like, me and Krakoa go way back. And like, Magneto kind of says his stuff, and then Wolverine's like, is that going to be a problem? He's like, and why would it be? And then he kind of has his big voice, like, for centuries I have fostered war and conflict, all in the hopes of mutantdom finally asserting dominance over the world. Now look at all of you. Look at all of you. You have finally become what I intended you to be. I could not be more proud. And I was like, oh, Apocalypse is like, finally, you fucks are like doing what I always thought you should have done from the beginning.
Congratulations, you finally did it. What?
But I think it's like an interesting idea to have Xavier, Magneto, Sinister, and Apocalypse kind of on the same team. Because they're so goddamn powerful. Mm-hmm. Like, and this was my thought, because we have 3 issues left. And based on what we know that's coming out, like the other books, this is such a huge paradigm shift for the entire Marvel universe.
Which is like kind of unfortunate that they had like that big Marvel murder mystery like trickle out images to kind of pump the event, and one of them was Xavier, Magneto, and Apocalypse with Xavier holding a Krakoa flower.
Mm-hmm.
It turns out that murder mystery is going to be like who ruined the mutant plans and murdered Charles Xavier, and it's going to be something stupid like that. It's going to be Heroes in Crisis all over again.
Because like the thing is, like with the way everything's going, it's like, how do they fuck this up? Unless it's Sinister, how does this get fucked up?
I actually have a theory on that. Like, I guess like, and my theory is that blue child with at the very end is Apocalypse, like a younger version, and that thing that's floating around is the library, like a futuristic version. And
in the X1000 year?
Yeah, the X1000. Like, it has, like, all the information, because he calls it the library, and, like, a librarian, so that kind of, like, connects, I guess. And I guess they're trying to, like, have an opening to, like, start bringing back the mutants, because I guess they figured, like, the Avengers and everyone else would not allow them to just like take over the world, so they're playing the long game.
But you're right, but like in the same run, like they're not really doing anything wrong. Like, what would the Avengers anybody like do? Like, oh, you gave the world free medicine? Like, like, oh, you guys want a country to yourselves and just like sit over there and then you're just gonna wait out? But
the same thing
is like to wait out all the rest of humanity to like where they die off.
No, because the same thing happened to Genosha. They were just living there peacefully, and then like 1,000 Sentinels just rained down upon them with no help from the Avengers or anyone.
I think the difference now is like they're so well defended and like spread out. Like that's the big difference. But yes,
I mean, yeah, it's like the big difference I think between the island nation of Krakoa and like whatever happened with Genosha is that on Genosha, like, you still have this big fracture between Xavier and Magneto and, like, the enemies outside of that scope. While with Krakoa, it's like everyone's working together. But it still doesn't matter. Because we know, as of Powers of X, this does not work out.
Mm-hmm.
Like, something happens. So, it's like, at the end of the day, it's like, who is the fox in the hen house?
Yeah, where the fuck is Moira?
Yeah, like there's 3 books left. They didn't even touch Universe 6. Like, not Universe 6, like Timeline 6.
Connor brings up a great point, because, like, oh, we've all been pointing at Sinister, because, like, of the 7 powers. In the last, like, 2 or 3 issues, we have not seen Moira whatsoever.
Yeah, she's
like,
an absolute ghost.
Yeah.
So the next book should be just her, like, waking up with the knowledge, and...
Yeah, we haven't seen her since the Apocalypse time.
Well, okay,
and when she goes and meets with Xavier to talk to Magneto.
Okay, so I brought this up within the chat because I'm listening to Jay Mazza explain the X-Men. It's a really great podcast if you guys want to ever basically get caught up with the X-Men from the very first issue to where they're currently at within like 1993, chronological order of X-Men. But like currently they're going into the Legacy virus. They're they're leading right up to the Phalanx, and it's just been revealed that Moira McTaggart has the Legacy virus, which, for people who don't know, the Legacy virus was basically an AIDS allegory for mutants.
Who were a gay allegory at the time.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I mean, it's an AIDS allegory because like also the AIDS virus spreads between.
Yes, but I mean, like specifically at that time period too, like the way they were handling the mutants in general was a gay allegory of like you didn't know until you were like in your puberty and you were hiding it, you're closeted.
Yeah,
some people can pass, some people can't.
But so to that point, you like it was assumed that only mutants would get the Legacy virus, and then it's revealed that Moira McTaggart has the Legacy virus, and she will die at a certain point because of that virus. And now, because of the current events of this comic, it's revealed that, hey, Moira McTaggart was a mutant all along, and what is the most prominent death that Moira McTaggart has had? It's the Legacy virus death. So, I at least kind of think that the sixth death has to revolve around the Legacy virus, and it's like something to kind of do with around that time.
How is that possible? Because if she gets the Legacy virus and dies, does she, I guess she does come back in the next cycle. Yeah,
as long as she has hit puberty, which is the weird part of like mutants' powers, then her mutant gene is activated.
Mm-hmm.
So if she gets the Legacy virus post-puberty, then she will come back.
Got a question on that, like the resurrection. What if they just like resurrect Moira when she like reincarnates? Does she just come back, or is this like another clone?
What do you mean, like, oh, if they use the resurrection process on Moira?
Yeah. There's still like 3 books left, and they're like, oh, let's bring someone back. Let's bring back Moira.
Well, Moira's kind of... I'm trying to think here.
Is she still alive in that timeline right now?
Yes.
Okay.
Here's my thought. If I'm the person... Like, if I lived in this world, if I'm Xavier and Magneto, if it is Xavier, I keep Moira locked away, kind of like how Apocalypse did, and she's my emergent, like, break glass in case of, to, like, have her die and then send that information to the next version. To like kind of figure stuff out. So I don't think you clone, like, there's no reason to bring Moira back unless like everything is perfect, like in the the resurrection problem.
Yeah, kind of like what Apocalypse did, just kept her in a sarcophagus the entire time.
Yeah, I would still kind of think that that's what Xavier, and Magneto would agree to, like, is the best way for her to kind of like help everyone. Because that's the whole thing. Like, in the way that this works, her story, no matter how it ends, is the most tragic. Because her existence is basically the only reason for it to be is like, because she's basically living Groundhog's Day. Except for the fact that, like, she can pass on the information and people now believe her because there's other psychics and such. And the only way that, like, her existence kind of has any meaning is if they just like put her on ice until they're like, shit's fucked up, you're our reset button, even though we won't see it, but you'll be able to fix it, kind of a thing, if you get what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So I do think that she has to play another big impact. I completely agree with John that, like, I think it makes the most sense for her sixth life to be tied to the Legacy virus. Because we did see, like, one of her lifetimes, she works with the Legacy virus and basically destroys all mutant them, but then, like, everybody dies anyway.
I think, like, the big problem with, like, that idea, at least, is, like, if her sixth life is her dying to the Legacy... Okay. I guess it would make sense if, like, if her sixth life dealt with the Legacy virus, and then the seventh is her dying to that, and then the seventh life, or like above is her using the legacy virus as like a weapon of destruction, and she already is like has an immunity to it. Because it's like, how does she die in 6 and then be immune to it in future lives?
Well, when she was working on it, she could have like figured out the cure, died, and then like had it developed early.
Or it's like the current, because I think that like also throws like a wrench into like where like this book takes place.
What's the whole thing with the Powers book? We don't know, because we figured out, because there's 4, I think you were not on one of the episodes. In the Powers book, there are 4 timelines that it's talking about: X0, X1, X2, and X3. I believe X2 is the Apocalypse timeline.
It's not even timelines. It's like Powers. Powers is one timeline. It's basically like them taking place at different actual times.
No, I don't agree with that. I think Powers is separate timeline, because that is how she dies in the Apocalypse one and pops back out into the House of X timeline. So the Apocalypse one is Moira 9, and I don't have my issues up here.
So, but like, okay, so we can assume that 0, 100, and 1,000 are like part, because she doesn't show up in 1,000.
We don't know.
We don't know that.
We don't know that.
Yes,
but
she could be one of those, because like I think I said last time, those 2 beings at the end, the male and the female, look like they could be Xavier and Moira, like in some weird, like they're apocalypsified, because that thing at the end of that looks like Cypher,
and they keeping their lives going, and they eventually take over the Earth, or whatever eventually happens in the future, whatever timeline this current book ends up being.
Yeah, so I'm looking at Powers 2, X0, the X-Men Year 1. That is the timeline when Moira and Professor X go and visit Magneto and share all the information with him of Moira's past lives.
Mm-hmm.
And then it cuts to X-Men Year X1, like X to the first power, X-Men Year 10, and it's the current House of X. So the House of X timeline is the X to the first power, as opposed to the X to the 0.
It just sounds like you're trying to do math.
I know. And then X to the X squared is the apocalyptic future, where Moira's in the sarcophagus, and like there's the weird goofy Nimrod and all that shit. And then X to the third is the year 1000 with the blue people, and Nimrod's like the floating thing from Destiny, where they encounter the
ghost.
The ghost. So they encounter like the phalanx thing and all that shit.
Mm-hmm.
So to me, those are 4 separate timelines.
Yeah, each one of the Powers storylines has shown a different timeline, and
because X3 ended with them getting the information on Nimrod for the Mother Mold to give to the X2 version, which is the House of X person.
Yeah. So each one of those, like the X1 timeline helps the next timeline, which helps out the next timeline, which the next timeline, and you can see that like every time Powers deviates for a second, House gets like a big story push, or like whatever they're doing at that moment is kind of tied to what they were talking about recently in Powers. And the last thing that we saw in Powers was talking about the future. Then immediately we cut to this. So I think that timeline is the current timeline.
The blue people one
is this timeline.
Well, that differs from like in Powers. It shows specifically that I'm trying to look. So, Life 9. Shit, I gotta like zoom in on this image. I'm looking at the Moira timeline. Sorry. So Life 9 is the Apocalypse timeline. Okay. Life 10, so Moira X, is our House of X timeline.
Yes.
And so life 8 was shit. It's like hard to see it on this thing. Is the Moira with Magneto. And then life 7 is when she tries to like blow up the master mold, the mother mold thing on her own, when she's all like G.I. Jane.
Yeah.
So we still, and then 6 is what we don't know.
I think 6 is important. Don't get me wrong, but I think
there's definitely a reason why 6 doesn't exist, and she's not talked about it.
Mm-hmm. At least yet.
But what's funny is, to go back to it, the life 9 was in red, which is the Apocalypse timeline. So because of that is why I say that, like, in the powers thing, how there's the different things, we know for a fact that the X to the third power, the X cubed, is a separate timeline. The year 100 with the Apocalypse and stuff is a separate timeline, because it is the Moira 9 timeline. It is not the House of X, Moira X timeline.
Yeah.
Which makes me think that either, and since we know X1 is the House of X, because they've said that, we don't know what 1000 and we don't know what 0 is. And my thought is 1000 is going to be the life 6, and 0 is going to be what we're left with post House of X. Is going to be like Moira life 11.
Moira life, current life. The life where she actually dies.
Because the Apocalypse, I'm trying to think. No, the Apocalypse universe is not where all that shit happens with House of X. It's the year 1000 stuff. Is like where Sinister turned on everybody and humans and the machines kind of separated.
Mm-hmm.
And that is the year 1000 stuff, I think. But we have 3 more issues to kind of figure all this out.
Yeah, it seems like a lot, but it's going to go by really quick. Now that we're paying so much attention to it, and I'm so invested in it, god damn it. I didn't even get this invested.
I mean, I was talking about this before, man. X-Men's good.
X-Men's really good.
X-Men are so, like, when they are in the right hands, they are some of the most interesting characters to play with. It's just that when they're in the wrong hands, it is really bad.
Mm-hmm.
That could be said for any book.
I think there are characters that are much harder to play with. Like, I think Superman, to go to like the DC side, I think Superman is a very, very hard character to create an interesting story around, because he's so powerful and he's a singular being.
Let's put Superman in the army and give him a gun.
I think that Cypher is much more important because of what we saw in the last issue of Powers, with the phalanx, him touching the flowers. Like, I feel like nothing is done not on purpose.
Okay.
Which I feel like is like really kind of cool, because I feel Cypher has been kind of like a butt of a joke for like a long time fans of the X-Men because of his power set, and I feel like as time goes on, he gets like kind of more powerful, and I like that.
Yeah, because one of the issues, like the cover I got for this week, it is like Cypher is the cover. It's like a kitty cover, but it's his arm is kind of its own intelligence. Like, it's like jumped out with like a face and stuff. It looks like, I'm trying to remember, is it Warlock? Maybe it was like how Cypher looked in the past, where he looks like a giant like machine thing.
If you look at it, it looks like the alien beings from Powers at the very end, like the giant sentient robots.
Yeah, so like I think those things are tied to Cypher, and maybe the blue aliens people are not, but they're from Earth too, because they have the Nimrod. So that's where it's like that timeline is so weird, because if it's the techno-organic virus from Cypher has gone off into the universe, and then these other people are some sort of remnants of human mutant kind, but then Nimrod's still with them, it's like a little weird.
The very last page is that giant like robotic orb after they fuse, and it looks like a giant golden egg, like merged with like the virus. So maybe there's like it's big enough to just have mutants start walking out.
Yes,
well, since they have the librarian like right there.
It's the bald guy and the woman who are blue with kind of apocalyptic symbols on their face with the little Nimrod.
Yeah, it could be Xavier and Moira, like apocalyptified. I would guess.
Well, they could have, because one of the things in this latest issue was that they talked about they haven't played with the things that they could do with this resurrection technology. They haven't seen what happens if you put somebody in a body, like the mind in a body that wasn't their original.
Yeah, and they also put them in apocalypse, like shells.
Yeah, and I think that might now be foreshadowing. A very good point.
I think there was like another idea that they said that they never tried, which is making improvements or something like that.
I think that's like a little cute nod to the Sinister Pits that they had planned. Like on Mars
they said
and everything.
Upgrades, extensions, and stand-ins have not been tested yet. So like to do like the combo thing, like the Sinister thing, like they have not tested that information, like kind of how to do that.
Yeah, I'm very interested to see how they handle these next few issues because holy shit. We just spent the last hour and a half talking about, or hour and like 10 minutes talking about one issue.
One book. Yeah, one book.
Yeah, I know. So,
some books have already started referencing House and Powers.
Oh, really?
There was I believe it was a. Let me see if I
heard about that. Was it an Avengers book? Or
it was an Avengers book, and they were referencing like active threats, and they mentioned Krakoa.
So they see him as a threat.
Well,
they were listing.
They're a threat to society in general. It's like one of the first issue when like talking like it's basically, like saying that like giving out this medicine will basically like destroy the pharmaceutical industry.
The pharmaceutical.
But like across like the entire world, like it'll just throw everything into chaos.
Yeah, there was a panel like we have the ability to turn humans into inhumans, mutants, and it was about like changing humans because like it was. I'll find the book and I'll have to post it. But they were like, well, we can't turn humans back into mutants back into humans as they can't go backwards, something like that. I'll have to find it.
Well, basically everything that they said in House 1 is that like mutants becoming the dominant species is an inevitability. The only change is if like machines take over.
Yeah, when machines come in, that's when the mutant population goes
which
down.
we have seen in 2 of these timelines. Yeah. What happens when the machines take over? So we have 3 issues left of this specific story, but we know that like part of my thought is like we kind of know based on the other books that were announced that as far as like the way this ends, it's not going to necessarily get blown up with these 3 issues. Mm-hmm. We're just going to get more clarity on like what timeline we are in and what this looks like.
Yeah.
But this is an amazing way again to clear up all the continuity problems and make everything canon.
It's a lot better than doing a reboot. Like, hey, all these like mutants died. How are we going to fix that? Let's do a reboot. Nope. Let's have this 12. Let's just do this insane story about the mutants just reviving all other mutants.
Yeah, if this ends with them reviving all mutants, like that is such a huge paradigm shift on its own.
Mm-hmm.
Compared to
can you imagine like everyone who got depowered on like House of M just coming back? That'd be insane.
Well, that was another one of the things that it talks about in the issue is like they don't know how to deal with that because like do you like kill that person in their brain?
Well, okay, so you have like this like big romance between Mystique and Destiny, and like why would Mystique be on like this kill team to destroy the Mother Mold? It just doesn't make sense that she would be on that team. It's like, what if like within the next like two issues or 3 issues, it's to like put Destiny into the queue further to have her be resurrected, and then we get like the return of Destiny, who I feel like has been a really cool mutant who's been off the table for a pretty long time.
And she's in that Moira book, the Moira X book.
She's in that Moira book. She's and as we talked about before, she's in that History of the Marvel U book.
Mm-hmm. And in that Moira book, she specifically says they're basically two sides of the same coin. Like, their abilities are kind of opposing. So we have not seen Moira in here. She's also the one that said Moira maybe had 10 or 11 total lives. Because that was the book where Moira played with the virus.
Yep.
So it'll be interesting. We have a couple more issues left, so I cannot.
It's all uphill from here, and I can't believe I'm still saying that.
I know. It's amazing that it's like a book where it's like they answer questions. Like, this issue gave us the answers from issue 1 that we've been talking about with the pods, and yet we have like a million more questions.
Yeah, I know what you mean, man. I actually I'm enjoying this so much. I went to my local comic book shop and I added a bunch of the X-Men books to my pull. So when they come out, I'll just go and get them.
I think I'm not someone who usually gets X-Force, and I was going to get the rest of them. I think I might at least get the first issue of all of them.
Yeah,
I'll probably get the first issue of everything. Yeah,
because I don't really care about Excalibur, but like I want to read and see what's going on. But yeah.
So I think we can close out. We were going to try to do this a short episode, and it turned into a normal episode. So
we gotta just stop saying things.
Yep. So we'll close out. Don't forget to check out all of the other podcasts. So you got Smallville Chronicles, The Phantom Zone, the new thing, which is the 3 a.m. files, is just starting, which is really fun. Not sure when the next episode is coming out of that, but it was really fun. Talked about mysterious deaths. Don't forget to check out all the Los Horror stuff at loshorror.wordpress.com. Bunch of people writing over there. Connor writes there. There's a ton of podcasts. The Los Horror podcast, Los Horror Games, Legion of Tunes, which we have to get back to at some point. And yeah, so that should just about do it. So we will check you guys out next time.
Yeah. I love you so much.
Don't be a stranger.
Unless you're in danger.
Welcome home.
I will finally think of a catchphrase soon.
Welcome to the Phantom Zone.
And now, talks.